everyone, my name is Olivia and this is Agrarian Schoolhouse, aka my homeschool room. So today we're going to do a belated curriculum chat during this nap time. I want to set up this conversation by talking about the main curriculum choices that we've made for our kindergarten first grader. So we've done kindergarten curriculum in the past. She is 5 years old and ready for first grade. So we are kind of in that space of being like 6 months early compared to her actual birthday. I'm going to start with some broad brushstrokes of kind of what we do in a week-wise, or what takes up most of our time. Okay, so we are doing Ambleside online year 1. And I'll link Ambleside in the comments below or in the description box or whatever. But it's an online free Charlotte Mason curriculum that uses literature and the skill of narration to have those readings completed by either the parent reading to the child or the child themselves, and then the child narrates or talks about them and what happened in that passage. So I go off of the weekly calendar for term 1, year 1 of Ambleside Online, and of that there's a first page and a second page. And so the first page is the scheduled readings, and the second page is a series of like daily work curriculum that you choose, like fill in what books you're going to use for that, as far as like foreign language, math, other things, right? We have not been consistent with our foreign language, by the way. Confession. But here we are, I'm really working off of the first page, which is the reading schedule for Bible, history and tales, natural history, literature and tales, as well as poetry. So in Charlotte Mason, or at least in year 1 of Ambleside Online, they do natural history instead of kind of the hard sciences that you think of, like biology and chemistry. Here is our reading schedule for the first term, which is the first 12 weeks, and I kind of highlight and mark it off as we go. For year 1, I am doing those readings to her, and she is either talking about them, telling me 2 or 3 points from the reading afterwards, or whatever. We're developing our narration skills there. And then on Fridays we do classical conversations co-op. So this is the foundations curriculum. They're in cycle 2 this year, and there's a series of memory work, as well as they do a science experiment, some type of art, whether that be music or fine arts. It varies throughout the year, and then they go over their memory work, which is history, a math, a science, a Latin, what am I missing? In English. They go through their memory work in here. So I have coloring sheets associated with their memory work, and we have been focusing more on the science and history and geography memory work through foundations. Let's look at these different sections of what books are included in the subjects. There are a series of books, and they are scheduled for that week or whatever. So you might read, for example, in week 11, each week has an Old Testament and New Testament passage, but then in week 11 you read out of 2 of the 4 history and tales books, you read out of 1 of the 3 natural history books, and you read out of 3 of the literature and tales books, and then it has, for poetry, a poem every day. And we have not been doing our poem every day as much as we used to in the beginning of the term, but I think it's a success to work on the others. That's what we have capacity for in this season. We'll jump around a little bit and start with our natural history readings and texts for this term for year 1. We have the Burgess Bird Book for Children. This is a print that I got off of thrift books. However, it does not have the pictures in it, so I would recommend an Amazon version. Check and make sure they have the colored pictures to go along with it. That would make it easier for the birds. Okay, so So Paddle to Sea is a story about a carved canoe with an Indian sitting inside it. Named Paddle to Sea, and it's a child's wish that this boat, this canoe, get all the way to the ocean. And so you're looking at water patterns and freezing and icing and whatnot of the journey, throughout the journey of this little boat, this little canoe. Okay, and then we don't have the cover on this one, but this is James Herriot's Treasury for Children. The pictures in here are phenomenal, and my kiddo has already read through a bunch of this, just from enjoyment, right? So she's the pictures are pretty phenomenal, captivating, and she read most, if not all of this, like on her own already. So we just reread the chapters that it calls for and talk about them when it's on the schedule. So next we'll look at History and Tales. Here is 50 Famous Stories Retold by James Baldwin. These are pretty short, like 2 or 3 pages per short story, and it's normally 1, and on the occasion we had 2 short stories. 2 weeks we've had 2 short stories to read out of here. So pretty short, and you talk about it. Next is Our Island Story by H.E. Marshall, and it's talking about Britain and Britain's, at least that's the part of the history we're on right now, England. And from my understanding, the curriculum follows more of an English history. It's on their website. May have been on Ambleside's website, but talking about how we have had our history as a nation stemming from English history. So it has an emphasis on English history, not just U.S. history or world history. De Aulaire, if I'm saying that correctly, book for this term only is Benjamin Franklin. So we finished this one, and I believe there are at least 1 or 2 other De Aulaire books in other terms for this year 1, but here it took us a while to get through this one. The pictures are really excellent, but I don't think my child is primed for biography just yet. So here it is. So here is the KJV version that we're using for our Bible reading with Ambleside Online. So for literature and tales, we have the Blue Fairy book. So this one, the pictures are much less prevalent, but we've read, for example, like Beauty and the Beast, like the actual story, as opposed to the Disney rendition of it, and they're actually quite different. The Blue Fairy book from Classic Living book, complete and unabridged by Andrew Lang. So you can get this, I think they're different printing companies or whatever. This is from Living Book Press. Another literature and tales book, we have Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories, and you read, again, we're not reading through all of these from cover to cover. There are specific sections that you come back to and read. So for example, out of this one, we've read Whale, Camel, and Rhino, and we'll read a leopard by the time the term's over. We have the Aesop for Children. This one is illustrated. For example, here, right, the words are pretty big, so if your kiddo is reading, this could be a reading to experiment with, having them read to you and narrating. But this is the Aesop for Children, and this one you read every week. Multiple stories, and they're pretty short. Here is the Shakespeare copy that I got for this term by Charles and Mary Lamb. This is Tales from Shakespeare. It's very understandably written, which is nice, but not like in child's language. So there's still a curve for, understanding, right? So it's not written just for children, but it's obviously not like reading Shakespeare either. So here you go. We've read Midsummer Night's Dream out of here, and then we're working on The Tempest, and that's all out of this book for the first term. And then we also have parables from nature. So this has been neat. It's listed under literature and tales, like it's talking about different morals. So this one has been pretty neat, and we've read 2 readings so far out of this, and we have 1 more for this term. So that covers natural history, literature and tales, Bible. Now we'll talk about our other curriculum that is not associated directly with Ambleside. Create your curriculum list that is required, right, based on your requirements for your state or whatever. But anyway, there's flexibility with other curricula. And then I'll show you the Children's Garden of Verse by Stevenson. We haven't been great about reading on it recently. It's this one. And this is read a poem a day. We are, let's see, anyway, they're illustrated, which are nice. They're not super long. So that covers what we're doing with Ambleside Online consistently every week, as far as the reading schedule. And now I'll show you our other curriculum that I've more curated based on the math recommendations on Ambleside Online's page. To add to our Ambleside plan, so there are recitations, like a few Bible verses and couple poems to memorize throughout the term. Right now we have worked on a couple of Bible verses using them as copywork, but we don't have those solidly memorized. But right now we're working on the second poem. She memorized the first poem, which is Autumn Fires by Robert Louis Stevenson. And then right now we're working on a letter is a Gypsy Elf by Annette Wynne. But I just printed these out here. Okay. So I added in spelling this year. This is a recommendation from the Well-Trained Mind text that I have that has curriculum recommendations. This is a spelling book that Well-Trained Mind, they recommend working through at your own pace. So this is not specifically like a first grade book or kindergarten book or whatever. It's kind of like whenever you start, you just work your way through at your own pace. So we do about one page per school day of spelling. And then we're doing the Explode the Code workbooks. So we already went through 100 easy lessons. Our teacher trials reading 100 easy lessons, and then we were working on phonics pathways before that text got pretty tricky for her, so it kind of got ahead of her age. And so we have swapped over to these workbook style phonics workbooks, and this is workbook 1 for first grade. There are 3 different books for first grade, 1, 2, and 3. So she's completed number 1, except for the post-test in the back. Apparently you have to get the teacher guide to have the post-test questions, so we just skipped that. And we've started Explode the Code workbook 2. And this is how we're doing phonics right now. Not to say we'll stick with these, or maybe we will, but when she gets back up to maybe the level where phonics pathways is appropriate to pick back up again, we may start back in there along with these or swap back and forth. Not sure yet, but this is where we are right now. And I'll show you the inside. This is I kind of record this planning wise as a writing practice as opposed to a reading practice, because there is kind of it's almost very spelling oriented. So here, writing and spelling here. So, but this is phonics curriculum workbook. I think there might be more in the teacher book or whatever if you're interested in that, but I never purchased that. So that encompasses our reading, literature, language arts, history, science, except for math. So we'll talk about math here. So we were working on Saxon 1. We had gone through Saxon K without the calendar meeting portion in the front, and that seemed to work out for us. So when doing Saxon 1, I was like, okay, we'll pick up the calendar piece at the beginning. Anyway, it got old for us. as far as it taking a while to do all of those repeated things every day. In that meeting portion of the workbook, that could work for some kids. It just wasn't working for us. We were just working on the workbooks by the time we dropped Saxon. So Saxon is a spiral approach, so you revisit math concepts, right? And so now we're going to work on a mastery approach and see how that goes, which is math with confidence. My kiddo is not really a math lady as far as it being her favorite subject. I think she's more language focused. So I found another curriculum to add on to math with confidence, which is Life of Fred. So I'll show you that one first. Here's Life of Fred. It's written by a PhD, and it is in a reading kind of style. So you really like go through a chapter and then answer the questions at the end. A chapter in kind of a story format, which is hilarious because this is the character. His name's Fred. And she likes this. I think it conceptually makes sense that, oh, you read the chapter and then you do the problems at the end. We were kind of getting caught up with the, here's this random thing and this random thing and this random thing and this random activity and this part, do this thing, and then end up with worksheets with the other curriculum. So, so this has been a neat way to talk about math with her. And I'll show you what is inside it. Here's chapter 1. It's I find it more like hinged on concepts. There goes her worksheets, papers, in story format. We're hinged on story-based concepts as opposed to specific skills. And then this is an example of just the 5 questions at the end, and then the answers are on the next page that she can work on checking them herself. But we have been working on this a little bit, and it's been fun. This is the first book of the series. Goodness, there are specific details for like which books to do for grades like 1 through 4. It's not necessarily graded, so this one's called Apples. So Math with Confidence is our graded math curriculum right now. This is first grade, and we're just really getting into that. We're going to be starting the second week this coming week because we started with Saxon at the beginning of the year. So this is a shift for us, and it's a more modern curriculum, I think. And so far, I'm liking the format. And then here is the kiddo workbook. That was the teacher guide, but here it's in color, and that's Math with Confidence. One new thing that there is an enrichment page at the end of the week where you can choose to read certain math books, complete a project, and whatnot. So that is an addition that Saxon did not have. That ties up our curriculum overview for the 2025-2026 school year with my first grader, and I hope that inspires you to branch out or try other curricula. You can pivot as you need to as a homeschool parent, and that's the beauty of having this kind of job as opposed to a school teaching job. So you're able to really tailor this curriculum to the needs of your student and see what works best.